Grace and forgiveness. Two topics that absolutely deserve to have their own separate episodes, but today we are going to bring them together in a beautiful way, because if you are reinventing yourself in any sort of way, you're going to want to have grace and forgiveness in your back pockets. And I'm going to tell you exactly why in this week's episode on the Reinventing Thyself podcast. Stay tuned. We all have situations, experiences, and moments in our life when we know deep at our core we have to do something different. We have to pivot. And regardless of how big or small that pivot is, it requires us to change something in our life. And that change can feel really uncomfortable. However, it is that change that is creating something entirely new. And it is that newness that creates a very different way of life in one area or multiple areas of our life. What's this all about? It is all about reinventing thyself. My name is Michelle Shutter, and I'd like to welcome you to Reinventing Thyself. I am so glad that you joined me today, because it is here that we'll move beyond our old self, our old identity, and that trailer of garbage from the past that we like to pull into the future, but really need to ditch that hitch. It is here that we'll move into that place of reinvention and embracing the newness of it all. Are you ready to step into reinventing thyself? Because guess what? It is never too late, and your time is now. Let's get started. Hey, welcome back to this week's episode 40 already on Reinventing Thyself podcast, and we are going to talk about grace and forgiveness. But before we tap into that, are you ready to reinvent yourself in some way? Well, actually, we do it absolutely every day to some degree. However, on my website on michelleshutter.com, I have a quiz for you to take that will reveal some really interesting characteristics in this whole process of reinventing thyself. So if you're interested in taking that quiz, you're going to want to head on over to michelleshutter.com. Common question that I get is, what is reinventing thyself? Well, when something is changing in your life, there's something that you need to pivot. It's really important that you lean into that pivot rather than head the other way. And you can do that by just really embracing the change and learning all the lessons that come through this process of reinventing. Because my wish in all of this is that you just move boldly and bravely through this new beginning and beyond. And the content I'm going to share with you today will certainly support you in that. You may not think grace and forgiveness is a big part of reinventing thyself, but it absolutely is. So just in case you haven't caught an episode before, my name is Michelle Shutter, and I am a life coach for women that are in some sort of reinventing process, right? Who knows what that looks like for you, because everyone is a little bit different. Now, today was just an absolutely beautiful day. If you're watching this video, I'm in a tank top, my hair is kind of pulled back, and it's just one of those days where it was super chill, relaxing. The weather was beautiful. It was warm, but it wasn't this ungodly, crazy, humid weather. And it just felt so peaceful to be able to create this content for you. So super excited that you're here listening to this, and would love to hear what you're taking away or what you take away from this whole episode. And in the show notes, you will find everything that you need to reach out to me. So let's get started here. As I mentioned in the intro, grace and forgiveness are two pieces of reinventing thyself, or that you can bring into that reinventing process. And they really are two topics that deserve a lot of attention separately. But in this episode, we're going to bring them together, because not only do they layer together over one another, but they actually blend together in a beautiful, beautiful way. And when we can begin to see grace and forgiveness through the lens that I'm going to share with you today, it really brings on this whole hug of self-goodness in a way. Now, if you're in a position where you can grab a piece of paper and pen, grab that, because I'm going to give you just some things to reflect on. And you may want to do this right as the episode is happening. And you can just hit the pause button to write down your reflections and then come back. If you're driving or walking or something like that, just come back to it at a different time. So let's start with grace. And the first question that for you to reflect on is just, how do you define grace? Because grace means different things to different people. We're so caught up in this one definition of words. And, we go to the dictionary and we look it up, what exactly does that mean? Well, it's going to mean different things to different people in a way. Yes, it's going to have this overarching theme, right? But really, when you think about it, what does that mean to you? And for me, grace really is this space of, this unexpected act of kindness from yourself or others. And it happens at times when you really don't feel like you deserve it. Now, I want to even take away the piece of others and look at grace from the lens of just focusing on yourself. When you can come into this space and give yourself the unexpected kindness that you absolutely deserve in the moments when your logical mind is saying you don't deserve that, right? That vicious voice that likes to creep up. And so one of the things you want to look at is, what situations are you putting a lot of energy in that really require grace from you, that unexpected act of kindness? And some of those situations for you to reflect on are, where are you being a heartaholic? You're so hard on yourself. You're hustling really hard. And when you're in that mode, you've disconnected from your feminine energy. So where is that coming up? Where are you just like a workaholic or a do-it-all-aholic? A lot of women can easily fall into that do-it-all-aholic because, it's natural for us. It's easy for us. Well, yes and no, right? At what expense are we damaging our own self by trying to do it all? Where in your life is the piece of struggle or fear creeping up? Where's there guilt or self-judgment, perfectionism? All of these bring in a lower energy that we're resonating at. And we really want to create some awareness with it. And when we are in that lower energy, it's very challenging to give yourself any kind of grace. You may be looking at, grace from others that you feel like you need their validation, and that isn't where you want to focus on grace. You want to look at grace from yourself. So, given what I just shared with you, pick one or two situations that perhaps are more frequent in your life or maybe currently happening in your life. And when you have those situations, I want you to ask yourself this question of, how can you look at the situation through a different lens? And it's so easy to beat ourselves up. That vicious voice that sits on our shoulder and whispers in our ear. It's so easy to fall into whatever that voice is saying. But the different lenses that I want you to consider is, what if you looked at that situation with the lens of compassion? What if you saw it through the lens of acceptance or love or with forgiveness or that unexpected kindness and grace? What would be different for you if you viewed that through one of those lenses? Because here's what grace does. Grace allows you to evaporate the negativity. It allows you to move to a higher energy level. It really gives you the freedom to be you. It allows you to make mistakes that are so very important for your expansion. Without knowing what you don't want, how do you ever get clarity on what you do want? You have to have that contrast. But in our minds, there's so many times we feel like things have to be absolutely perfect. And that isn't the case. When we are so consumed with perfection, we disallow any grace that we deserve to have in our life. So when you tap into that experience of grace, you have to allow yourself and give yourself permission to experience it. And I'm going to say that again because that's so very important. When you tap into grace, you have to allow yourself and give yourself permission to experience it. Don't tap into that piece of you don't deserve it. Don't succumb to the vicious voice. Follow that heart. Follow that deep inner knowing that you give yourself permission to experience the grace. Now, there's certainly other ways that grace will allow you to go to new levels. So again, this episode is just very surface level because I wanted to bring both grace and forgiveness together. So let's do a little shift here and move into forgiveness. So again, how do you define forgiveness? It's going to mean different things to different people, but again, an overall theme, right? What does forgiveness mean to you? And what are you giving meaning, having it mean in a deeper sense? So for me, forgiveness is a way of releasing some sort of energy that has impacted a situation or a person in a way that just was not aligned with my greater good. Okay. So again, with grace, we took away the other piece and we looked at self. Let's do that again just with forgiveness. Let's look at self, because when we look at self and applying the practice of forgiveness, it is really that perfect path to liberating and freeing ourselves. And so we think of forgiveness, a lot of times we interpret forgiveness or we give meaning to forgiveness that it's about the other person or persons or situations. And I want you to consider looking at it differently, that it isn't about the other people or that other person or that other situation, but it's really about yourself, because forgiveness allows you to move into something even greater in you that is ready to awaken and expand. Now, know that when you are hurt in some way, or angry or pissed off or whatever, and you're seeking forgiveness, just know that it's never an excuse for that other person. Someone else's actions or choices, it's not an excuse for what that person has done to you in some way, but it's your responsibility in how you want to respond. Now, again, I'm not getting into like all past issues and traumas and things like that. However, you don't have to hold on to past things or even something that happened yesterday, right? Forgiveness is about you. It's about liberating you, giving you the freedom to allow yourself to move into the expansion, to take the lesson that was learned in the situation and allow you to expand. So a question, and you can, let me back up 1 second here. Like, you can practice forgiveness of that other person as well by not even sharing that forgiveness in person. Like, you can do it from afar. You can release that energy from wherever you are. It doesn't have to be something that you do in person. But again, just remember that it's never an excuse, okay? Because you are using forgiveness to evolve yourself and release energy that no longer serves you. So when I say that, I want you to think about, like, what would be different for you if you allowed yourself that space of practicing forgiveness in a way that releases energy from you that no longer serves you. Now, just know that as you start to reflect on forgiveness and things that have happened to you or things that are going on that you are holding on to and you're storing that energy, just know that you may have a gamut of emotions that come up around the topic of forgiveness. And know that that's okay. Like, that is normal. Allow yourself some space for that and allow yourself to feel them in some way. Allow them to move through your body. Or be aware, if you are not allowing that you are suppressing it in some way, and where is it showing up in your body? And what benefit are you having by holding on to that energy? Okay, so emotions are energy in motion. They are supposed to move through. They're not supposed to land and get stuck in our bodies. They're supposed to move through. So when we take, and again, like forgiveness, this is just a surface level piece here, but when we can take forgiveness and we can take grace and we blend them together with the focus of it being on you and the benefit that comes from you practicing it, first and foremost, always benefits you. I want you to really sink into that and really understand that grace and forgiveness, when you blend them together, when you layer them on top of each other, when they can commingle in a deep way, it benefits you. Does everybody else around you, and you can look at that ripple effect, will they benefit as well? Absolutely. But first and foremost, we want it to benefit you. And you might be thinking, well, gosh, like how does it benefit me? Well, when you blend grace and forgiveness, it really allows you to decrease your catabolic energy. That level 1, that level 2 energy, that energy that is very like disempowering, it's destructive, it keeps us stuck, it tears us down. So it decreases our catabolic energy and then it increases our anabolic energy, the energy where we feel powerful and fueling and it's constructive and it's expanding to us. Not only that, it allows us then to show up in a version of ourselves that feels like we are honoring ourselves, that feels heart-centered, that feels connected to us. It really increases our life satisfaction, and it really gives us an opportunity to shift our perspective on things. In addition, like our gratitude and our intuition begins to strengthen, and it brings our inner and outer powers together. And again, I go back to this space of like, it's liberating when you can bring those together. It is liberating and it gives you the freedom to be you. You deserve to connect back into that space of being you. So yes, reinventing yourself is all about new and stepping into something else. It's more powerful when you do that, when you connect back into the truest self of who you are, and using grace and forgiveness in that reinventing process will serve you exponentially. Now, this already has been a lot in this short episode, and it's only surface level. So my invitation for you is, if you resonated with this topic, I want you to know this is the kind of thing, these are the kind of topics that you will receive support on in the life coaching classroom. If you are looking for some details on that, you're going to want to go to lifecoachingclassroom.com. I would love to have you join. If you go to that page and you enter your information, I'll give you all the details. It isn't quite open yet. We're coming soon. Just trying to wrap up a few things. But again, all those details can be found at Life Coaching Classroom. So take a breath. Take it in. Allow yourself some space to really reflect on grace and forgiveness using the questions that I gave you, some of the situations that come up. How can you put yourself first so that you can step into that space of liberating yourself, of freeing yourself and connecting back to that true self. And as always, as you are on this journey of reinventing thyself, my wish for you is that you move boldly and bravely through this new beginning and beyond, and do that by blending grace and forgiveness into your process. Until next time. Well, what are you waiting for? Whether you've pivoted and are unsure, or you're on the verge of pivoting, there is no better time than now for you to begin. Want to know why? Because if it wasn't the right time, the pivot wouldn't have shown up. And to get you started, I've got 3 shortcuts to reinventing thyself. Just head on over to www.reinventingthyself.com and you can download it there. And don't forget to message me with the shortcut that resonates with you the most. One last thing, I know you and I are not the only ones that have leaned into the pivot. Be sure to share this with others so they can be supported too. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for supporting me and sharing this message. Until next time.